I'm good at the back? Wonderful, wonderful. Has everyone got their glasses suitably filled? That's the main thing. Have you, Andrew?
Yeah, I have, thank you.
Great, that's the most important thing. So welcome everybody to the launch of Harry's Quest by A.B.Patterson. I'm Alan Yates, I'm today's Master of Ceremonies. For those of you who are aware of Harry's Quest, it is of course the much anticipated sequel to the award-winning first novel, Harry's World. Let's have some applause. Absolutely. Look, I think on that basis we all agree that the success of Harry's World was astounding, wasn't it? I think Andrew's very happy with the success there. I was here for the book launch for Harry's World some 3 years ago, and it's great to be here today to see the sequel. Since finishing that book, we've all been looking forward to the next chapter in Harry's exploits. And as I have a keen interest in local government corruption, Andrew has assured me that chapter 3 is going to be very interesting, so I can't wait to get to that point. For those of you who have read Harry's World, there is nothing delicate about Andrew's writing style. Harry's World has been described as ballsy and literate, but with extra cheekiness on the side. That must be Tanya and Sasha, would that be Harry's World was described as raw, profane fiction. The perfect read if you're looking for adventure, crime and corruption. Harry reminds me of hard detectives from a long gone era. And he does indeed. So to introduce the book and the author, I would like to extend a very warm welcome to L.A. Larkin. Good afternoon. Louisa Larkin is here today to introduce Andrew and of course Harry's Quest. Right, for those of you who might not know, Louisa Larkin is an internationally acclaimed British and Australian thriller writer. The writer of several outstanding novels, including The Genesis Floor, Thirst and Devour. A.B.Patterson, whose colourful and extensive career you may be well aware of, has worked within paedophilia, vice and corruption. And I'll be very interested later on in fielding any questions about the correlation between his professional life and the exploits of later on this afternoon. Exploits of Harry. Not your exploits. That might be afterwards. So in a moment I'll hand over to Louise to introduce Harry's Quest, and then we'll open up the floor for some questions you may have of Andrew. And please, for controversial the better. This is a chance to find out more about the man behind the novel that we're here to celebrate today. If you have any questions about Andrew's experience with corruption and crime, please feel free to ask away. So once Andrew's been thoroughly grilled, we'll break for some book signing and some sales, and if anyone wishes to purchase a copy of Harry's World as well, and instead of Harry's Quest, I understand that Andrew's brought a few of those along today as well. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Louisa and Andrew.
Hello everybody, can you hear me okay? Yes, both sides. So we're here to celebrate the launch of Harry's Quest. And I'm very honoured to be asked to do this, to actually introduce the book today. It is really, I've read it. I've actually been very lucky to get an advance copy, and it really is sizzling. You've got a lot to, and I'm not just talking bacon, it really is sizzling, it really is. And of course it is the second P.I. Harry Kenmare novel. As an author, what I really loved about it was that it was bold. It is the gloves are off and we are in the ring, bare knuckle boxing. It challenges the crime fiction genre, and it actually takes a brave author to do that. I think it's a fantastic thing and we need more of it. It doesn't shy away from violence, from characters who tell you what they are really fucking thinking, and even quite a few sex scenes. To digress just for a minute, I can't tell you how hard it is actually to write a good sex scene. Really difficult to do. Because you quite clearly can't have, in this kind of a book, a Mills and Boon style heaving bosoms and throbbing members. It would kind of be a bit out of that place. They wonder what had happened to you as an author. But at the same time, you don't want to end up with hardcore porn either. And what actually happens in the crime genre is that most authors avoid it altogether because it is so hard to write well. You know, you have your classic sort of thing where, you know, two characters are quite clearly going to rip each other's clothes off it very shortly, leaning together, their lips touch, cut. The next morning, and that's what you get. So my last book that I wrote, I actually had a sex chapter, so I think I might be competing almost. but I only had a sex chapter because the characters didn't really have time for much sex because they were too busy, you know, being almost killed by assassins most of the time. And it was probably the chapter that I wrote and rewrote most. So, you know, to do what you do and you do it really well, that's quite something. Harry's Quest is hard-boiled and noir and fearless, like the central character. But it's also darkly funny. And it's the humour that provides the tension release you're going to need with this thrilling plot. But seriously, I was at a Thrillers Writers Festival in New York last year, and I'd like to just tell you a quote that I actually copied down from what Lee Child said. Does everybody know who Lee Child is, the author of Jack Reacher novels? And what he said, and this is pertinent to you, Andrew, he said, a book needs the author's personal integrity. The spark and life can be beaten out of it if you go around as an author listening to everyone. We, as in the publishing industry, are all waiting for the next big thing, not the same thing reinvented. And Harry's Quest is absolutely unique, so that's great. There's no doubt in my mind that Andrew's career in law enforcement has really helped him create such a compelling and believable plot and intriguing central character. But to translate your own personal experience into an entertaining read is a whole other skill. It is a craft that has to be learned, it's hard work, and requires discipline. And it is actually a lonely process, because most of the time, authors are on their own, writing somewhere, maybe at home or in a library or wherever they can get a peaceful moment. And every now and again they're allowed out to actually, you know, make an appearance such as this. But most of the time we're back in our cages doing that. And it is a lonely process, so it's actually quite hard. So let me tell you about the time I heard Margaret Atwood speak about novel writing, because this is relevant to Andrew. I'm sure you know of Margaret Atwood. She wrote The Handmaid's Tale, The Blind Assassin, and other hugely best-selling novels. And of course, The Handmaid's Tale is that series that's going at the moment. So this is her story. She was a guest speaker at a function for lawyers. Now, if there are lawyers in this room, please don't take this personally, and this is from Margaret Atwood, not me. This was a very big event in a very big ballroom. It was a sit-down dinner. There were hundreds of lawyers. She made her speech. When she'd finished, she sat down at one of the tables, next to an eminent criminal lawyer. He leaned over to her and said, and I can't do the American accent, so just forgive me, you know, when I retire, I think I'm going to write a novel. Can't be that hard. Imagine saying that to Margaret Atwood. Anyway, Atwood paused, smiled. Be careful. She said, you know, when I retire, I'm going to be a lawyer. He looked terribly shocked and mortified. And he said, oh, I don't think so, shaking his head. That takes many years of study and practice. She replied, so does writing a novel. And that's my point, that Andrew has managed the transition to being a great author seamlessly. He's worked hard to learn about writing intriguing characters and plot and structure of a novel. He's been passionate and humble, asking other writers for advice and input, which is why this, his second novel, has been published and why Harry's Quest is such a good book. I urge you to buy a copy today. In fact, I urge you to buy 2 or 3 copies today, because there's always a friend or a relative who needs, a birthday present or something like that, a gift. And I'd also like to take this opportunity to raise a glass and toast a wonderful author, Andrew.
Right, can everybody hear me? Good.
Yes.
Always one in the cheap seats. Well, thank you very much, Louisa, for your wonderful comments there. And thank you, all of you, for coming along this afternoon. So I'm going to talk a bit about, obviously, Harry's Quest and the writing of it, and my writing generally. Before I do that, I need to go through a number of thank yous. Bear with me for that, because whilst, as Louisa has very poignantly said, writing is a very solitary occupation. Publishing a book, however, requires an awful lot of support from a lot of people. So whilst you do the creative bit very much on your own, to actually get to the end process, and as Louisa said, it is hard work. Requires a fair bit of support. So I have a number of people that I do want to acknowledge. Some of you are here, some are not, but you may well be watching the video of this in due course when it goes online. Obviously for the event this afternoon, I want to say thanks to Louisa and to Alan for their support and assistance with it, and also to the Aussie Youth Hotel, my favourite watering hole, and gentlemen behind the bar, and Zelman and Dan, who are the owners of the place. For those who have read Harry's World, you are probably aware that this is the Emerald Bar in Harry's World and Harry's Quest. So it has some connection with reality there. I'm not Harry, by the way, but we'll come back to that. Honestly, I'm not. All right, so in terms of having finally got, after another 3 years since the first book, I haven't got the second book out, and I do promise you, if you are a fan, I promise you I will not keep you waiting for another 3 years for the third one. But in terms of getting there, first and foremost, and most importantly, thank you to my lovely partner Ruth, who supports me through everything I do, puts up with living with an author, which has its challenges. she'll no doubt talk to you over a drink afterwards. I'm not going to help you out with that. And puts up with my crap all over the place in terms of my writing stuff. Somebody who's not here, my editor, Eliza, Eliza Compton, over in Paris. He did a fantastic job editing the manuscript for me. Now, 2 people who are here, my writing group, Janine Hewitt and Nigel Bartlett. Janine, Nigel and myself have been in a writing group since 2012, I believe it is.
Long time.
A long, good time, yeah. Having the writing group has really, I think for all of us, given us a great opportunity to sit down and critique each other's work, and as a result, I think all produce better work. And we've certainly had some lively discussions along the way. No, thank you very much to both of you for your ongoing. Also, our writing group is ongoing, although we're going to fire it up again for this year. But yeah, your level of support and critique, both as writers, is outstanding.
You still left tumescence in, though, didn't you?
Janine doesn't like the word tumescent. I think there's a few other words you don't like in there as well, but that's all right. And we can agree to disagree. All right, people who have over the time read various drafts and given me feedback. My sister, who is not here, she lives in France. Somebody who is here, Richard Purcell. I saw you. Where is Richard? There he is. Hi, mate. Richard and I go back a long way to being on a hard-working team at ICAC many years ago. So, but thank you, mate, for all your support and reading drafts and feedback to me. And another friend, Graham Dunn, who lives overseas now as well. It's not here today. Simon Westerway, some of you will probably know him as the actor from Underbelly and Janus and Phoenix back in the 90s. Simon, we had a lengthy afternoon together talking about Harry's World, which he'd read and really enjoyed. And some of you may know, Simon is also an ex-police officer. So we had a good chat about that, and the comment that really endured with me from Simon was that he said, "Mate, I really enjoyed the story, but looking at Harry, I've never met such a highly productive drunk." Don't we all wish? Stephen Hill, where are you, Stephen? Oh, there you are, mate. Stephen Hill does a lot of my design work for me at this company, Vilunia, and the bookmarks, which you'll see around, and please help yourselves to them. Souvenirs. Stephen did all the design work on the bookmarks and helps me out with a whole lot of design stuff. There's a poster up there, you can see it there, so thank you, Stephen. And then for the production side of things, Publishers up in Queensland, it's the company that I use for self-publishing and the work they do with typesetting and printing, etc. Mike Hale, a doctor friend of mine, one of the interesting things about researching some of this type of writing is that you want your characters to plan a very successful abduction. So you go online and you sort of type in best drug to use in an abduction. And of course, with all the monitoring the government now do, things there's some goon down in Canberra who's actually watching this. Next thing you know, you knock on the door, if they've got the right door, that is, saying you're planning to abduct somebody. I did do some research online, but he's actually a friend of my brother's, but he's a medical professional now, and so I got hold of him and said, "Can you give me some advice on drugs?" And he said, "Yeah, sure, not a problem." So hopefully all the drug details are drugs I've never heard of. So that's good. And then Sailor Studio, who are the company that do my book cover designs, have done both of them so far, and we're very happy with them. And then the last acknowledgement I'll make is to, and you will see, I'll talk a bit more about it shortly when we're writing, Switchblade magazine, which is a magazine of noir crime writing which comes out of Los Angeles. And I've now had some short stories published in Switchblade magazine, so I certainly want to acknowledge Switchblade magazine and its managing editor, Scott Rutherford, over in LA, who I will be meeting this year when we go over there. But the opportunity of having work printed, particularly in America when you're a crime writer, is an outstanding opportunity. I've got a couple of copies of Switchblade there. They're not for sale, they're my copies, by the way. But if you want to have a look at them afterwards, they're on the book table over there with the other books. Okay, right, that's the my thank yous and acknowledgements sorted out. So, the book. So Harry's Quest. It's taken 3 years to come up with this. It was a bit longer than the first one, as you'll see on the table over there. It's a bit fatter. It came in at 110,000 words. And I can tell you that by the time I'd finished the editing process, because the writing process, and Louise and Nigel yourself, you are the same, I actually haven't done a book. The writing process is hard enough, and then you finish your manuscript and think, sweet, I'm there. Then of course you have months and months of editing, layers of editing to do. So the version of Harry's Quest that finally went for typesetting and printing was version 10. And I can tell you by the time I got to that, I'd had an absolute gutful of it. And you really just want to get rid of it and say, if there are mistakes there now, I couldn't give a stuff. It's going as it is. And it's actually amazing, because whilst I self-publish, therefore I'm responsible for all the quality of it myself. It is amazing particularly when you are a writer now and you do editing work on your own work, you become more critical in reading on everything you read as well. I read a book a week on average. And it's amazing actually when you read commercially published books through the publishing houses, how many mistakes are actually in there when you see them. So if there's a small handful of mistakes in Harry's Quest, I can live with that. So that's the story. Really just pick up from where Harry's World leaves off. I know that some of you at least have read Harry's World, and yes, and as Simon Westlake quite rightly said, he is very, very productive drunk in the first book. He's drunk a lot of the time actually, but that's obviously partly a legacy of his life and the traumas of it. In the second book, as the title implies, he's now on a quest. He gets information early on in the book which enables him to start hunting down the pedophiles who many years before had abducted and killed his daughter. So that's where this book starts heading off to. And it's not the end of the trail for him by any stretch, but that's where this story leads him. At the same time, as I did in Harry's World, it's written in 5 episodes. And my reason for doing that with Harry's World was because apart from the overarching story of Harry, it's also to give in each episode a different expose of some sort of corruption which Harry has to work on. Part of my reason for writing is to put information out there which is fictional. And as Louisa alluded to, if there are any lawyers in the room, unless I'm paying you, I've got nothing to say. It is, I think, to use the film phrase that comes up, inspired by true events. It's probably the best way of putting it. So yes, I write fiction, but a lot of it is heavily inspired by what I've done, what I've investigated, what I've seen, both in my career as a detective and a police officer originally, and in more recent years in Sydney doing corruption work, ombudsman work, local government in particular. And Mr. Yates, you're going to be delighted with episode 3 from a local government perspective. Never any shortage of corruption. So I've stuck with the 5 episodes in order to bring out different types of corruption as well, but with the overarching story of Harry, what he's doing. And also, importantly, in this book, one of the things I really enjoyed about writing it was developing some of the other characters to become more central in the story. So, whereas the first book was very much centred around Harry, other characters were very much side characters. So you had the twins who came in the book, Tanya and Sasha. You had his off-sided Trev towards the end of the first book. In the second book, we see Trev and the twins become much more developed as characters with their own stories, their own issues, and setting up some other storylines with that. So I think what I'll do now, if you can bear with me, I might read a short excerpt to you, give you a flavour for what it is. A mouthful of wine, please.
Is it one of the sex scenes?
No, you can read that in your own time. It's funny, I'm going to digress since you I'm no doubt one of the questions will more be about sex scenes as well. It's funny, as Louisa absolutely rightly says, they are so difficult to write. Now, I'm not into Mills and Boon. I've never actually read a Mills and Boon. But I'm not, no, really. I'm not really into subtlety anyway, and those of you know me well will be able to vouch for that. That's enough from the cheap seats over there. I'm looking at you. But they are very difficult to write, and obviously, I like to. My whole writing style is fairly explicit anyway, and the sex scenes are no different to that. You then, of course, have to keep a very clear distinction between the consensual sex scenes between adults, which is supposed to be erotic, versus anything which is of a sexual crime nature. Now, obviously, given my professional background, and obviously given Harry's World in the first place, there's obviously a level of pedophilia that runs through my writing, so one has to be very careful about the distinction about how one writes about sex. But yeah, a couple of little anecdotes on the sex stuff. You do write it and you worry about how people are going to take this. And I know we've had some interesting discussions with Writers Group about sex scenes. But I've got to say, I've had all sorts of different feedback on Harry's World since it came out in 2015. Most of which I'm glad to say has been positive. You get some anonymous trolls on the internet who are not positive, but that's life these days. The one thing I haven't had any negative feedback about from anybody ever are the sex scenes. And I really do think that whilst it's a subject which we can still be very reticent to talk about, I do think it's something that really seems to enjoy reading. It might explain this massive success of 50 Shades of Grey, of course. we had, and I won't mention the name since this video will go online in due course, but a friend of ours in the UK who got a copy of Harry's World, and he emailed me out of the blue and said, "Oh mate, I'm loving the book, and I'm reading it on the tube in the morning on the way into work, and I love those twins." You know? A lot of straight guys are probably going to say they love the twins, but you know, that's... and he said, "Mate, but the only problem is I get to my stop and sometimes it's really hard to get out of my seat." So, okay, well, the eroticism seems to be working. The sex scenes can be different. So we're not hearing a sex scene today. I'll read you a scene. All right, so the background to this is that Harry and Trev are going around to talk to a pedophile. Is talk loosely, and hopefully take him away. So the background is that they've got a hire car which looks like a police car. They're both in suits, which is very unusual for Harry, of course. And off they go. So that's the backdrop to it. Tanya, meanwhile, is out with them. He's waiting in a van, ready to help pick up the body. Dieter Schwartz is sitting at his kitchen table, reading the Daily Telegraph and sipping a cup of tea. His mother is serene and laconic as always. He jumped as the doorbell sounded. Strange, he thought. He certainly wasn't expecting anyone. One of the benefits of living in such a swanky enclave, without clues by the way, was the scarcity of door-to-door pests. He thought he'd lie low and ignore it. They'd move on soon enough. By the third time, the ring was rather more insistent, and accompanied by a solid knock on the door. He snuck into the front room, where he could get a view of the porch and driveway without being visible himself. He saw a newish white Commodore sedan parked behind his Volvo. Then he saw two largish men at the front door, both dressed in suits, short hair, one with a slight beer gut, and the thinner one holding a clipboard. Shit, cops, detectives. Maybe the feds were finally looking for Bernhardt. Dieter definitely didn't want them sniffing around looking in windows, so best to talk to them at the door, appear eager to help, and tell them that Bernhardt had gone away, or better still, moved out. He walked into the hall and opened the front door. The one with the clipboard spoke as they raised leather wallets with metal badges. "Mr. Schwartz?" He looked at their badges. Shit, not feds, they were state police. "Yes?" "Detective Sergeant Black." And my offsider, Detective Sergeant Hand. "We're from Eastern Beaches Detective's Office." "Is there a problem, detectives?" "We just need to ask you a few questions, Mr. Schwartz. Maybe we could come in. Shouldn't take more than a few minutes." He sure as hell didn't want them in the house, and his mother wasn't exactly up for any guests. "Why can't we just talk like this here?" "It's a bit of a sensitive matter, Mr. Schwartz. More discreet to chat inside." Dieter's mind was racing. They clearly didn't have a warrant of any sort. They would have said so and demanded entry. So, he stood his ground. "It was all the same to you, detective. We'll talk here." The second and chunkier one, who was staring filthily hard at him, spoke in a low, menacing voice, almost a growl. "Listen, pal, we can do this the easy way or the very fucking hard way." There was a malevolent smile on the cop's face. "If you want us to start having a loud conversation out here about your car there being seen trying to pick up kids down in Malabar, then we'll play it that way. Should definitely make an impression on your neighbours." Dieter swallowed hard. The first one smiled at him. He must be the good cop of the routine. Then the bad one continued. "And then we'll do a bloody door knock up and down the street, asking if any of you oh-so-respectable locals have ever seen any kids being brought into this house." Dieter's hesitation ended abruptly. Okay, you don't need to do anything like that," he said quickly. He unlocked the security door and opened it. "Come in, detectives. We can chat in the front room, just here." He needed to stop them getting any further in towards the kitchen, not to mention the special private room that he and Bernhardt shared. He led the pair into the front sitting room. "Now, how can I help you today, detectives?" he asked, through a nervous, forced smile. The slimmer of the two, now facing him, spoke. This is your mother's house, isn't it? He asked. Yes, detective, but she is away visiting relatives in Germany. The same cop continued. That your car out there, the blue Volvo? Yes, detective. His mind was racing, trying in the typical suspect's way to guess what the cops already knew and how unhelpful he could be without appearing to be. Dieter decided not to volunteer Bernhardt's name at this stage. You been down at Malabar this week outside the school? Dieter was panicking now. Let me think. As he stared at the nicer cop's out-of-fashion red and gold striped tie, wondering how to answer, he didn't notice the heavier, nastier cop disappearing behind him, and then it was too late. So it gives you a flavour of what Harry and Trev with the two bogus cops in there get up to. I think with writing a second book, I know that for a lot of authors it is reputedly the hardest bit.
The hard one.
And it certainly has challenges to it. I think it's, on one level, it's easier because, sorry, this is my perspective, but it's easier because you've done one. You don't have that self-doubt anymore that I can't do this. So that does make it easier. I think it's harder in that obviously you build up certain expectations with the first book. And of course in terms of the actual craft of writing, when you're writing a sequel rather than a completely separate novel. When you're writing a sequel, as you know Louisa, Nigel, same from your current project, the continuity issues you have to observe in terms of sticking with what characters you've already developed in the first book makes that challenging. Having said that, at the same time, as I alluded to when I started, one of the really enjoyable things I found in writing the second book is further developing characters. So whilst Harry is still the main protagonist, other characters really step up to the plate much more. And that's fun in terms of developing other characters and their backstories and their lives and their issues and their problems. And gives you a whole lot of alternative storylines or extra storylines to follow as well. Of course it does, particularly when Tanya in particular is developed far more as a character. That then brings up the problem, of course, being a middle-aged male, writing from a young female's perspective, which is, again, brings up all sorts of challenges of its own. I think the other thing that is both difficult second time around, but you get better at it, it is that discipline that you need as a writer. It's very easy to have the time to write and think, oh yeah, I'll get around to that, I'll do a bit of internet research because the internet's great, but it's such a time trap. So you sit down there, you do research, you fiddle around with all sorts of things, or you read something to try and get a bit of inspiration. A couple of days go past, you just haven't written anything. Of course, that doesn't get you anywhere in the longer run. So I think the discipline of sitting down more regularly and actually producing words, even if you're only writing for a short period of time, most days of each week, and producing 300, 400, 500 words, that all adds up over time. And I still find that by far the hardest bit of writing is that first dump of the brain onto the paper. Everything else after that is editing effectively, which is an art to itself. And of course, as I said earlier on, by the time you get to version 10 of the book, you really are sick of the sight of it. But editing is a completely different process, I find, anyway, from that first brain dump of what's in the brain going down into the paper, or the laptop, depending on which method you choose for it. I did make a few notes. Okay, so that's Harry's quest. It's lots of fun, I think. Certainly lots of fun to write. The characters really have a lot of fun along the way in it, well, most of them, but I won't give any spoilers on that. And it really does take the whole story of Harry to the next level. Which leads me to, well, what's next for the writing? Harry is not finished. If you read Harry's quest, and I know at least a couple of you there have already read it, apart from Louise, a couple of other people have as well, you'll know that at the end of it, clearly he's not finished. So we've got the third one, which is the working title at this stage, and I may end up sticking with it. The working title is Harry's Grail, and that's been planned at the moment. Whether I write any more Harry after that, I'm going to see how I feel. I think it must be hard for some authors who write these endless series, like 20, 30, whatever novels in a series. I'm not quite sure how you maintain enough interest in your characters. But I think that would be quite difficult personally. But anyway, we'll see after that third one. I've obviously got short stories that I'm also working on. I actually had another one published in Switchblade issue 8, which came out yesterday in the United States. So that's it's online on Kindle at the moment. The print copy is yet to come. More short stories I'm working on, and another novel, which is not a Harry novel. It is about child abuse. There's some stories I want to tell there in a fictional sense, but that's a completely different style of writing, that one. So that's what's next. All right, so I might. How am I going for my time advance?
You've gone
Okay. I might just finish up with one more short excerpt for you, and then hand back to Alan as MC, who can then field questions from anybody. And please feel free to ask anything you like. Maybe I should have some exceptions to this. I can answer most things. There are certain things about ICAC which I will go to prison if I answer, and that's not where I want to go. But generally speaking, I can answer most things. When you finish at ICAC, they make you sign various agreements. So, but no, you can still talk about a lot of stuff. So please ask whatever questions you like. Obviously, and Alan's going to remind you that books will be on sale. But one point I did want to make, which I haven't mentioned Alan before, was if you are an e-book reader, if that's your preference, then both of the Harry's books are available on all of the e-book platforms, the major ones. So if that's your preference. All right, well, I'll finish up with another excerpt, and I'll pass back to Alan. Okay, so this is towards the end of the book, and the guys are still very much on their quest. It was dark and moistly warm at 5:30 a.m. on Tuesday morning. Harry and Trev grabbed their weapons and a backpack each. They left the VW van and the empty gravel car park at the beach. They placed a fake road closed barrier at the start of the track after they turned off the main road. Didn't need any locals coming down from early surf. Out of the van, they began a short trek to the far holiday house. Harry was half sternly focused and half exuberant, that wild mixture of nerves, anticipation, and sheer avenging bloodlust. Every day he thought of Orla, what she must have gone through. She had always been in his mind, but he hoped that as time went on, the memories would become sweeter and less tainted. The air was as heavy as lead and as still as a grave. At this time, pre-dawn, even the wildlife was silent. The pair moved stealthily towards their quarry. The sandy dirt was damp underfoot. The humidity overnight, combined with the downpour, had dampened everything, but without lowering the temperature. Harry peered through the shrubs in front of the house, closed his eyes momentarily to picture Orla and to reinforce his violent resolve. He saw her, told her he loved her. He opened his eyes. The young eucalypt beside him gleamed in the first sun rays reaching the eastern horizon over the Pacific Ocean behind them. Droplets of water collected at the tips of its grey-green leaves and then fell earthwards like the tears of dawn. It was as if Mother Nature was weeping at the prospect of imminent violence. Ready? He whispered to Trev. Always. The pair slipped on balaclavas, dashed over the sandy open ground in front of the house, and silently moved onto the narrow veranda. Harry tried the door handle and found it locked. He must have got used to locked doors, he whispered to Trev. Do it old school then, Trev murmured. Harry stood back and launched his foot into the door. His force took it clean up its hinges as it crashed inwards. I won't go any further, so I won't spoil anything. Okay, I'll pass back to Alan for some questions.
Wonderful, thanks very much, Andrew, and thank you all. So I'm going to open up the floor to the questions now, and it's not often you get to interrogator, former ICAC chief investigator. So I do invite you to interrogate away. Who would like to kick off the question? All right, well, I might start with... Oh, no, here we go.
It's a bit of a cheeky question.
Let's go. Cheeky question.
But Harry's got quite a few good moves in the sack. Is that from past experience?
Always is one.
Now, I did say I might repeat the question back to the audience in case anyone didn't get this. So Harry's got quite a few good moves in the sack. Is that from past experience?
Or wishful thinking?
Oh, wishful thinking. Bit of both.
Or should we ask Ruth?
Keep it clean. As I said at the outset, I'm not Harry. Whether there's wishful thinking in there, well, you know, I think if you're a male writing sex scenes in fiction, I think there's quite likely there always be a bit of wishful thinking. I don't know. But no, Harry does, as you put it, have quite a few good moves in the sack. But Harry likes to live hard, and he does love his ladies in a respectful manner. But he does have a few good moves in the sack, but it's not me.
Yes, at the back there.
I just wanted to ask Andrew whether do you think you might get your books featured as a film? Given that not that I'm a voyeur of sex scenes, and may I suggest if you get Clint Eastwood to play as just that he acted as Lieutenant Harry Callahan in the San Francisco Police Department.
Sounds good. So for anyone who, specifically over there who might not have heard that question, Andrew, do you think there might be a film of this?
How would you like it to go?
Look, I'd love there to be films in it. I'm a massive Clint Eastwood fan, so absolutely. I think, however, Clint now is well past playing Harry. Clint Eastwood, a great actor and a great director as he is. I think he's in his 80s now. I can't see him having any of those great moves in the sack. He wouldn't be up for it. No, look, I think.
Who do you see playing?
Who do I see playing? That's a question that Ruth and I discussed when the first book was getting finalised, and I've said from the word go, Russell Crowe. I think he's got Harry written all over him.
Oh no, I agree. I think he'd be great. Let's
Is that rough diamond? So if anybody knows Russell Crowe,
He's local.
please feel free to give him a nudge. But look, I think most novelists, I think, if they were being honest, would love to have their work turned into film. It exposes obviously your storytelling to a much bigger audience, because there are clearly plenty of people who don't read books, but they might watch films. I think so I would love somebody to come and say we want to buy the rights to the film. A couple of provisos around that. I know from what I've read and researched that there are plenty of authors who've had the rights brought to their book, and then nothing ever happens, and they can't do anything about it, because once the rights have been bought, they sell those rights. And so often stuff never gets made at all. The other real concern I would have, and it ties into one of the reasons that I self-published in the first place, and I've never approached the traditional publishing industry, and that's about creative control and wanting to write what I want to write. There are scenes in both the Harry books which I would take an educated guess that an editor of one of the big commercial publishing houses here would say, well, no, that's not going out as it is. Well, I think in terms of film though, my biggest concern would be making sure the film is faithful to what I've written. Obviously, screenwriting is a completely different art form, and Louise and I were discussing this over coffee the other morning. Screenwriting is a completely different art form from writing prose fiction. And I'm not interested in sort of attempting screenwriting. However, if somebody wants to turn the books into films, then obviously they have to write a screenplay, and writing conventions are quite different between a film script and a novel. But I would be concerned that whatever came out on film was actually faithful to what I've done, rather than, and you do get some films you see, and if you happen to have read the book they're based on, you think, what happened there? I'd be very concerned about that. But yeah, in short answer to your question, I'd love to see them in film. and Rusty. Rusty is my pick for Harry.
Any other questions? Yes, Dan?
Teaching investigators their craft is attempting to teach them the way Harry would do it.
Teaching investigators their craft is the way Harry does it. In fact, he wrote on my signed copy, How to Solve Corruption Harry style. So,
I'm not expecting Alan to take up on that suggestion. It'll probably be the end of his business. Look, I mean, I think one of the reasons that I wanted to, rather than write a police procedural type crime fiction with cops, I mean, there are police who feature in the story as side players, but of course the main man is an ex-cop. He got thrown out of the police. He's now a private investigator. One of the, I think, liberating aspects as a writer, I find with that, is that he can really do what he wants. You're not surprised when Harry breaks the law. You obviously need to find a balance between, you want your readers to, whilst they may not necessarily approve of everything Harry does, you do want your readers to follow Harry as a character and like him. Now, you may not agree with everything he does, but you think, okay, well, I can empathise as to, yeah, all right, yeah, that pedophile abducted and murdered his kid, yeah, they can have what they deserve, Harry style. But in terms of writing from an investigator's perspective, which is obviously, you know, where I come from, as do you, Ben, by having a private investigator rather than cops as your main characters gives you that leeway then to move on to that, because the problem with police procedurals, and look, there are some very good police procedurals written out there, and some very good ones I've read in recent times written by ex-coppers, particularly in America. But of course the police are then hamstrung by following their procedures and their rules, unless you write about corrupt cops. Okay. Whereas with a private investigator, and look, I mean, sorry, I'm digressing a bit there, but I mean, if you're writing about corrupt cops, if a corrupt cop is your main character, how many people are actually going to have any sort of empathy or liking for him or her? Whereas with a PI character, you're freed from those shackles of the character has to stick to police procedure and has to stick to the law. Because as it's quite clear, I mean, a lot of the time Harry doesn't give a shit. You know, Harry's going to do what he's going to do. And in terms of his PI business, when they have their corruption cases and other cases that they work on, it really is the case that, well, the ends will justify the means, but they're not hamstrung by those rules. So to come back to your question, Ben, would I suggest investigators follow this? No. Look, keep your jobs. But it's also, I mean, to a degree, it's also a homage to the old school, which we're familiar with. I was a detective back in the 90s, and a copper in the 80s before that. Things have obviously changed a lot since then. So there's a bit of a homage to that, but I think, if an investigator's reading this, don't do what I say. Enjoy the book, but yeah, it's not a training manual for the police academy down in Goldham, that's for sure.
There was another question down here too, yes.
I'm just curious to know, in terms of your approach to conceiving your novel, how much of your story, building your story, including the plot and the characters and indeed the ending, is preconceived from the outset? Or is it built on as you go, or a mix of both?
Did you get all of that?
Yeah, I did.
So yes, is it preconceived at the outset, or does it make up as you go? That's quite reassuring.
Okay. Yes, as Louise and I discussed this the other morning, and she put it, are you a planner or a pantser? So do you plan everything, or do you fly by which I think is the crux of your question. Look, I'm not a massive planner, I have to say that. I don't want to be, I don't want the writing to become this almost laborious formulaic process. Now look, that works for some writers, and that's fine. I mean, I'm not going to tell anybody else what they should or shouldn't do, and it's what works for you individually as a writer. But in terms of planning, I mean, I have an overall idea of where I want the story to go, and bearing in mind that both books, they've got an overarching story and then they've got the subplots in each episode. So for instance, at the outset, what I'm doing now with the next one, Harry's Grail, is working out the overall arch of where I want the story to go, and then which things that I'm going to do in each episode. But that's really about it. Other than, I know, having spoken to writers who they'll write 10 to 15,000 words just setting out the plan for their novel. I couldn't possibly do that. It would turn me off the process from the start. I don't want to do that. I want to do this for the rest of my life. So therefore I want to keep loving it. And that's why when you get to version 10 of the manuscript, you think, you're going. I really have had enough of it. So I think in terms of planning, a little bit so I know where it's going. I guess second book around, I planned more than the first one, because the first one actually started out as one shorter story to start with, and then it grew from there. So I don't do a huge amount of planning. What you do have to be careful about, of course, is once you're into sequel territory, is knowing and being constantly cognizant of what you've written in the previous book, because you can't start changing things about your characters. You have to remember what they've done before as well, particularly if they're going to refer back to what they've done before. So in that respect, that's an element of planning, I guess, in terms of being aware of that. But I generally like to have an overarching idea and then see where it goes. And look, I mean, depending on the day, and you can write and think, oh, well, yeah, I'll have the character do that or whatever. And I enjoy that side of it. That's certainly not how other authors necessarily operate. So, I mean, some are meticulous planners, some are not. But that's certainly my approach to it.
Any other questions? Yes. Yeah.
So you hinted earlier that some of the episodes in the books are based on your past experience as a police detective and investigator. I'm wondering how much of what Harry does is comes out of the frustration that you may have found during your previous professional life in not being able to either not being able to solve crimes or take crimes to court or get justice, that sort of thing.
Okay, the question back to everybody is really how much of Andrew's writing is inspired by his frustrations from his professional and local lives.
Good question. Look, absolutely, some of it is inspired by those frustrations. Obviously, and it sort of ties also into having a character who is now a PI, having been thrown out of the police force rather than a cop, and therefore that latitude of liberation to do things with the character and what they themselves do. Look, absolutely, and I mean, I know I have a few friends in the room who are also excellent enforcement like me. We would all have a bucket of those stories where we were infinitely frustrated with the justice systems we would see it. With things not going the way we thought should have gone, justice not being served, and we won't get into the issues around the balance of the justice system. It's an entirely different discussion. But I mean, there are obviously reasons for why the system's set up the way it is. Yes, I mean, when you're an investigator, whether you're a police investigator or a corruption investigator or any other investigator, you want to see a just result at the end of the day. That's part of what motivates you. Part of what should motivate you anyway. I did work with detectives who are motivated by money, but we won't talk about that. So I think, and again, one of the joys of writing fiction is that, of course, your character can have whatever result you, as the author, decide to give him or her. So, yes, Harry goes after justice, and there's justice handed out. A lot of it's, well, certainly not legal. Is it ethical? Different argument again. Ethics and law are not necessarily the same thing. So, yeah, Harry can go and get certain results. At the same time, I mean, in both books, I'm not keen at all on this sort of formula where you must have everything nicely, happily resolved by the end of the novel. I mean, look, that works for some writers. I mean, it works for some readers, absolutely. Because I like to write very realistic and quite gritty fiction, I also like that realism to extend to the fact that we don't always get a happy ending or a nice ending to stories, or what should happen at the end of the day. So both books, there's a mixture of what you would see potentially as just results. It might depend on your perspective, and there are some unresolved issues as well. I mean, there's one issue that was unresolved in the first book. I remember one of the online feedback I got from a reader from America was to say, oh, yeah, I really enjoyed it, but that particular character, she really needed to get it before the end of the book. and which is a fair comment, but that was one of the aspects I deliberately left unresolved at the end of the first book. You can read what happens in the second book. So there are certain things that come back and revisit, and then there are other things that I don't. But I think in terms of, yes, one of the good things about it is that, I mean, there were lots of cases I dealt with, particularly as a detective, where you never got what you thought was a just result. And particularly hard when you're dealing with, I spent almost all my detective time doing pedophilia and child sexual abuse. And you're obviously dealing very close to victims, you know, and to a degree, you know, you become a little part of their life, and you experience vicariously, obviously, but from a police perspective, but you obviously find out what they've gone through, and you naturally want to be able to get justice. It doesn't always happen. Look, I mean, it does sometimes, absolutely. More often than not, in my experience, but there are plenty of cases where you didn't get justice. I think one of the beauties of being a fiction writer, of course, is you design the ending yourself. And yes, so absolutely, there's a certain catharsis, I guess, in terms of, yeah, I want somebody to get it. They're not going to get it legally, which is, again, one of the reasons for using a PI rather than a cop as your main character. And then you can serve it up to them. Absolutely.
Any other questions?
Can I ask one?
Yes, sorry.
I just wondered if did you have a flair for writing as a young child? Did you keep a diary? Was writing a passion as a student at school?
Okay, so this question was, did you have a flair for writing as a young child?
Okay, great question. I've never been asked that at any author talk yet. No, the short answer would be no. I think, I've always enjoyed reading. And I had reading instilled into me from a very young age, which is great. I read more now than ever. I average a book a week, and I think as a writer, you have to read more and more as well. Because reading other people's work really, I think, helps develop your own writing to no end. And not just reading. I mean, I read a fair bit of hard-boiled noir crime, particularly coming out of America. Because that's the sort of genre I write in, but we're reading other genres as well, and just seeing how people tell stories and how they use language is great. No, I didn't really. I think I do have this memory, and it's funny with childhood, of course, that particularly I'm in my 50s now. Childhood's a fair time ago, and you sort of think, yeah, you got these snippets. But I always remember one snippet was some piece of code writing I'd done. I was at junior school, primary school, and it was. Creative writing piece for English. I wish I'd still kept that as a kid, but that's the only sort of one I can remember. I mean, I studied English literature all through high school, so I had to read, but that didn't involve writing at all, which is obviously a completely different thing. In terms of keeping a diary, no, not really. I had this one very short period as a very angsty, hormonal teenager where I did keep a diary, which is just full of shit. Yeah, you'd never go back to that for anything. Not like I don't think you could even find it. But that was one of those short periods of time. No, I wish I had. I think moving on from childhood, one comment I would say is that I wish much earlier on in my professional career I'd known that I was going to head where I'm headed now. So I would have kept lots of notebooks. And, I mean, a lot of stuff, yes, I'm still using a lot of stuff from those professional years, but it's all coming out of here, of course. I think, and a lot of those daily nuances and those daily sort of splashes of human colour that you get in life, you do need to write those things down. I mean, I don't go anywhere now really without a notebook and a pen. And I might be heading off on my other professional work, which is the stuff that pays the rent. And I always have the notebook there for writing, because I might suddenly get an idea and write that down. Because sure enough, the following day you won't remember it. So yeah, I mean, I keep notebooks all over the place now. I wish I'd done it much earlier in life. Do I wish I'd done it when I was a kid? Yeah, I'll leave the jury out on that one. But yeah, no, I didn't. So. Louisa, yes. Louisa had a question.
Oh yes. So some of the scenes in some of the scenes in Harry's quest are quite harrowing, particularly the ones that involved the children. It's kind of a two-part question. When you were dealing with this as a detective and it was your job, how did you deal with the emotional trauma of that? And do you find that when you're writing it, you find yourself quite emotionally moved as you're writing it, i.e. angry, upset, frustrated, that sort of thing? Because I know that when I'm writing, if I'm, say, writing a funeral scene, I find myself really choked because I'm remembering a particular funeral that I've been to. And I just wondered, how, as a detective, you dealt with that real issue, and then how, as an author, you deal with it or how it moves you when you're writing it.
Okay, as a detective, look, investigating child abuse, pedophilia, I would say is probably one of the very hardest areas of police work. And I don't say that to put down other police who do also very, very difficult work as well. But there are plenty of aspects of police work which are gruesome. But obviously dealing with kids and what some people do to kids is extremely difficult. Dealing with that professionally, you simply have to develop a mechanism in your own mind to compartmentalise. And you really have to switch off from what you're dealing with. Not switch off in terms of not doing a job, obviously, but because you have to do a job and you have to do it professionally, you need to be able to remove any of your own emotions from it so that you can clinically get down and investigate that matter, put together your brief of evidence, and if you've got sufficient there, send it up to DPP for prosecution. If you allow yourself to become emotionally involved in the cases, that's where everything starts to go pear-shaped. And if I can take us back to the early 90s, and some people in here who have similar backgrounds to me will remember this whole era where we had the repressed memory syndrome that came into the child abuse arena. And you had all these cases with repressed memories being brought up through often some quite questionable therapy sessions. And I remember we had a couple of big ones over in Western Australia where you had these detectives who were working on it, who sort of ended up completely emotionally involved in it. The Crown prosecutors got equally emotionally involved in it as well, and you had these people getting prosecuted. I don't think anybody ever got convicted. But on what was basically matters or briefs of evidence put together on emotion rather than cold hard fact. It's obviously difficult as a police officer because you're still a human being. But you have to have some ability when you're dealing with particularly traumatic types of crime. You have to have an ability of sectioning off your feelings, and that's one of the reasons why police typically, I gather it might be changing these days, but probably for the worse. But certainly in my time, we all socialise together because the only person you can talk to about that case you just done today are your fellow detectives. You're not going to go home and tell friends or family about this awful case you've done, clearly. So I think you need to section off how you deal with things. Now look, in the longer term that can take a toll obviously, but that's the way of doing it. In terms of the writing, it's an interesting one because I do tend to find that whilst there are certain scenes in the book, and a couple in particular, I'm not going to mention what they are because I don't want to give any spoilers, there are a couple in there which I found quite emotional to write. You've read it, so you probably know where I'm going, but I'm not going to say what they are because I don't want to spoil anything. However, I have to say that in both books, because there are child abuse scenes or aspects in both the novels, I find that when I'm writing them, it's almost like it's hardwired into me, and I automatically go back into that sectioned mind about writing it. And whilst I write them with a purpose in mind, in that we're going to get some justice here, it comes back to that question about do you write to get justice where you can get it in real life? I don't actually find. I don't want this to sound callous or anything, but I don't, given my professional background, I don't find it difficult to write in that respect. I think what you do need to be careful about, wanting to put things out there fairly graphically, because I want to show what actually goes on out there. I'm not trying to dress things up. Yes, it is gritty. I know a couple of reviewers who looked at the first book, whilst they enjoyed it overall, they said and one of them in particular, a female reviewer in America, said, I've got young children, I found some of the parts very hard to read, but overall enjoy the story. So look, but that's what you have to do. If you're going to write the style of crime writing, you can't pull your punches. But no, it is a very interesting question but I think it comes because I was able to deal with that professionally and compartmentalise sufficiently to deal with it. And look, I knew a lot of fellow detectives, they were great detectives, but they said I can never work in that squad, I just want to flog them. That's fine. And I wouldn't criticise anybody for having that human emotion. But obviously, if you're going to do your job and get a professional result for your victims, which at the end of the day, that's who you're trying to support there within the rules, you need to do your job professionally, so you do have to compartmentalise. But yeah, it flows into the writing, that's what I find.
Wonderful, thanks Andrew. Has anyone got any more questions? Yes.
How old is Harry and how old are the girls?
Oh!
Because I think Harry's 50 and the girls are 20.
Okay, how old is Harry and how old are the girls?
Good question. It's all legal.
I get that.
That's a politician answer.
No, that comes from an ex-detective who's well aware of the age of consent. How old is Harry? He is mid-40s. So whilst I never sort of state what the year is in the books, they're reasonably contemporary. So the first book, Harry's World, is around 2012. The next one's the following year, or end of that year, moving into the next. So the first one goes from 2012 into 2013. This one goes from 2013 into 2014. Now, whilst I don't explicitly state that, I don't think anywhere in there. That's one of those things that you need to keep track of as a writer because, particularly nowadays with the technology and the way it changes, you need to be aware of what version of what phone or what device was around in what given year so that you get those details correct. But in terms of the ages, and obviously when the hell the girls are, don't you? So in Harry's World, the twins, Tanya and Sasha, were 18. They turned 19 in that book. So, yeah. So they're young, yeah, but legal.
Any other questions? Okay. Well, if that's all the questions for this afternoon, I think we'll wrap it up there. Please stick around. Have another drink. Ask Andrew any questions you wish to personally after this. Andrew's going to be around for quite some time to sign some books over there and to sell some books over there. And just as a reminder, it is available on an ebook style as well, so you have that option. And just before we close, I would certainly like to thank Louisa. Thank you, Louisa. Once again, certainly would like to thank Andrew, A.B.Patterson for inviting us all here today. And raise a glass once more if you wouldn't mind, and we'll just celebrate.
Okay.